Good evening, respected chairperson, my dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, it's my proud privilege to get the opportunity to speak in front of the legend like Mr. P. Das Mohapatra, and also to have Dr. Shemunti Goswami as my co-speaker because she was my teacher and my career in ops and gynae started under her leadership from my internship days. Now, we have done tremendous advancement in the field of IVF. Despite that, the success rate remains as low as 40%. Why? Because implantation is the rate limiting step. So, why does it happen? Because it has been found that only one third of the top quality embryos are finally which are transferred finally implants. Therefore, two-thirds of the failures may be because of endometrial factors, and eventually only 15 to 20% embryos which are transferred give rise to live birth. In fact, in human being, the process of fertility is low compared to other animals because the endometrium remains receptive for a very narrow period of time called window of implantation, which is from 20 to 24 day in a 28-day cycle. So it's because it requires estrogen priming and timely progesterone exposure. Therefore, the process of implantation involves three steps: apposition, adhesion, followed by invasion. I am not going in details of it because we don't understand it properly. Therefore, the implantation is the function of good embryo and good endometrium. Unfortunately, in many cases, we cannot manipulate the embryo quality, but we can manipulate the endometrium in majority of the cases. So if there is shifting of the window of implantation, there will be implantation failure. What happens in fresh IVF, that is where you have started the stimulation and you are planning to transfer in the same cycle, what happens? There will be increased supraphysiological concentration of estrogen and progesterone, and this progesterone, particularly when there is premature rise of progesterone, there will be shifting of the endometrial window, that is endometrium will be advanced. As a result, embryo will not be implanted. But remember, it's not exclusive to IVF. It can happen in day-to-day practice when you are advising clomiphene or letrozole. And without folliculometry, if you are advising progesterone from day 15 to day 28 or so, what happens? The lady might have ovulation on day 18. So when you are starting progesterone from day 15, you are basically advancing the endometrium. So embryo, when it wants to implant, it will not find endometrium receptive. So pregnancy will not happen. Now we'll discuss first about role of estradiol in day-to-day practice, that is ovulation induction or IUI cycle. Take this example, very common scenario. You are advising clomiphene in the conventional dose and you are doing folliculometry, and on day 10 you found that the endometrium is thin, follicle is growing. Suppose you are very lazy, you don't want to interfere, so you are not advising any estradiol. On day 12 you found that the growth of endometrium is 6 millimeter, it has grown little, follicle is growing. Again you are not doing anything, and on day 15 you found that follicle has ruptured and endometrium is optimum. How does it happen without adding estradiol in thin endometrium? Remember the physiology. It's the periovulatory estradiol that causes optimum endometrium thickness, because sometimes the endometrium growth may be slow because endometrium grows at the rate of 15 to 0.5 millimeter per day usually. So wait until there is periovulatory rise of estrogen. So we need to learn the art of patience. Having said that, some studies found that in thin endometrium, if you add estradiol valerate, it will improve the endometrium thickness. But it is not translated into improved pregnancy outcome. So thin endometrium does not necessarily mean poor pregnancy. This meta-analysis has been published in 2018, and they found that clomiphene is associated with lower endometrial thickness than other ovulation induction agents, but it has not been translated into lower pregnancy rates with clomiphene. Some studies tried sildenafil estradiol combination and found that it definitely improves the endometrial thickness, but again, whether it improves the pregnancy rate or not is not known. But it's a prudent practice. I won't say it's very much evidence-based that you should not use clomiphene further if the periovulatory endometrial thickness is less than 7 and there is hypomenorrhea. Remember, the Indian ladies are particularly sensitive to hypomenorrhea because they often will tell you that the bleeding is scanty, there is less bleeding. So, it has been found that letrozole is associated with better endometrial thickness and improve the pregnancy rate. However, the difference in terms of pregnancy rate is not statistically significant. Remember, letrozole is not anti-estrogenic unlike clomiphene. So letrozole cycle, you are not supposed to expect thin endometrium. But if it happens, you can add estradiol because it will improve the pregnancy rate as shown in this study. But remember, if you want to give some add-on therapies continuously, you may be criticized in this way. Now we are going into endometrial preparation in IVF and the role of estradiol. As I mentioned, in fresh embryo transfer, there is increased chance of complication and success rate may be low. Particularly, chance of obstetric complications are higher because of high estrogen level, placentation may be defective, so there may be increased chance of placenta-related complications. So, in case of frozen embryo transfer, you can avoid these obstetric complications. Cycle segmentation is possible, but it requires good laboratory support, particularly vitrification, because unless you have good laboratory support, you cannot run the frozen embryo transfer program. Where FET is effective, particularly premature rise of progesterone. Okay, because in that case, if you transfer, there is lower chance of pregnancy. Ovarian hyperstimulation, because in case of hyperstimulation, it tends to be severe if the lady conceives. Thin endometrium, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, and obviously in case of fertility preservation. So there are three techniques of endometrial endometrial preparation in FET. One is natural cycle, where you are relying on the ovarian hormones, the hormones secreted by the follicles itself, or you can use stimulated cycle, where you are stimulating the ovary to secrete its hormone, and these hormones will act on endometrium, or you can go by artificial cycle, that is you are supplementing estrogen progesterone from outside. So hormone replacement therapy, in this case, you should reproduce the hormone level just like exactly what happens in normal menstrual cycle. So you require initial estrogen priming because it's needed for proliferation and expression of progesterone receptors, after which there must be timely exposure to progesterone. So estradiol valerate is very mostly commonly used medicine. Why? Because see, the chemical structure is similar to natural estrogen. Only difference is that in 17 carbon position there is a valeric acid moiety which reduces the metabolism of estrogen. So I'm not going into details. You know that estradiol valerate, it's basically estrogenic, so it binds to the nuclear receptor of the estrogenic receptors, changes in the DNA, protein synthesis, and ultimately the estrogenic expression action will be expressed. Now, it's not a base drug, it's a basically product which will be clipped into estradiol and valerate. Although it's rapidly metabolized in liver to weaker estrogen like estrone and estriol, but the metabolism is reduced, rate is reduced if because of valeric acid moiety. So when you give in the standard dose, you can achieve peak plasma concentration quickly. But remember, both estrogen and progesterone, they are subjected to extensive hepatic metabolism, but you can use estrogen orally, but you cannot rely on oral progesterone in case of IVF. Why? Normal output, estrogenic output by the ovary is 0.05 to 0.5 milligrams. So even if there is hepatic metabolism, by increasing the dose of oral estradiol, you can reproduce the plasma level. But in case of progesterone, even if you use as high as 1 gram per day of progesterone, you cannot mimic the daily production by the ovary, because progesterone is produced as higher rate, that is 25 milligram in 24 hours. So there is a pharmaceutical technique called micronization, by which the particle size of a molecule is reduced. It leads to better dissolution, better absorption, marked increased bioavailability, and desired clinical efficacy. And it has been found that even 28 days after the first dose of administration, the plasma concentration of estrogen is better with micronized estradiol valerate than plain estradiol valerate. And this estradiol valerate can be administered vaginally and sublingually. It has advantage over other estrogen like ethinyl estrogen, conjugated estrogen, and estradiol because it's very strong estrogen and it does not affect the coagulation, cardiovascular profile, plasma renin activity, and the lipid profile adversely. On the other hand, transdermal patches may be safe or patches or gel, but the absorption is variable, particularly in our country. So this is the conversion rate, that is 1 milligram of estradiol valerate is equivalent to 0.75 milligram of 17 estradiol. Now how can you administer? Either you can administer at constant dose, that is 6 to 12 milligram from day 2, or you can gradually increase the dose, that is 4 milligram, then 8 milligram, then 12 milligram. If you gradually increase the dose, it may be better tolerated, so there will be less chance of nausea, vomiting, bloating. However, clinical efficacy is not different in between two regimes. And then you do TVS from day 11-12 and see whether you achieve optimal endometrial thickness, and then you start progesterone and transfer. The question is when to start progesterone. The day when you are starting progesterone is called theoretical oocyte retrieval, as if you are doing the oocyte retrieval on that day. So this is called day 0 or P0 plus 0, and then you transfer the embryo on day 3 or day 5 according to the developmental stage of the embryo. Monitoring should be by TVS, and you should measure it in the mid sagittal plane. Now when you will start progesterone, it has been found that on the day of starting progesterone, if the endometrial thickness is 9 to 14 millimeters, the chance of pregnancy is higher than when the endometrial thickness is less than 7 millimeters. This study published in Human Reproduction last year found that although pregnancy is possible in thin endometrium, like as low as 5 millimeter endometrium, with gradual increase in endometrial thickness, there will be significant improvement in chance of pregnancy. Now, how long you can continue estrogen? It has been found that endometrium is very much well tolerant to estradiol therapy. On the other hand, endometrium is very much sensitive to progesterone therapy. So, exposure to estrogen as long as 5 weeks will not alter the endometrial receptivity. So the long duration is not deleterious. However, it's prudent to reduce the length of estrogen exposure because you can reduce the cost and you can reduce the time to conception. And this is one recent article published in the Fertility Sterility. They found that the duration of exposure of estrogen does not affect the live birth rate or pregnancy rate. Having said that, this article, another article published in Human Reproduction in 2018, found that if you use estrogen for more than 28 days, that is more than 4 weeks before starting progesterone, you are actually reducing the live birth rate. So for all practical purpose, do not use estrogen alone for more than 28 weeks to achieve the optimal endometrial thickness. Now, there are some people who reduce the dose, the estradiol dose in the luteal phase. Suppose during proliferative phase or endometrial preparation, you are you have used the estradiol at the dose of say 6 to 12 milligram. Some people reduce the dose to 2 to 8 milligram in the luteal phase, but it has been found that reducing the dose will not affect the pregnancy rate or live birth rate. Rather, you can actually reduce the cost to the patient. How long you have to continue HRT? Remember, in hormone replacement cycle, there is no corpus luteum to support the pregnancy. So you have to supplement the estradiol and progesterone until the placenta becomes autonomous, that is till 8 to 10 weeks. Side effects are minimum. The most common side effect is nausea, vomiting, and bloating. Breast pain is common, but you have to take precaution if the lady is having deranged liver function, cardiovascular risk, fluid retention, abnormal bleeding, deranged coagulation parameters, etc. Now, previously it was routine to downregulate the pituitary by GnRH analog. Why? Because you need to suppress the follicular activity completely. If you fail to suppress follicular activity, what will happen? One follicle may grow. It will cause escape luteinization, because this follicle will ultimately secrete progesterone, and this premature progesterone will again shift the implantation window. But it has been found that if you start estrogen at the dose of 6 to 12 milligram from day 2 of the cycle or even before that, it's enough to suppress the pituitary FSH and follicular activity. So downregulation is not required, because studies have found that downregulation or without downregulation, both are having same pregnancy rate and live birth rate. On the other hand, downregulation is associated with increased cause and increased side effects, particularly hypoestrogenic side effects. On the other hand, the chance of cyst formation, chance of escape follicular activity and escape luteinization is low, and there is better suppression of follicular recruitment and low cancellation rate. But downregulation is quote unquote essential in endometriosis, because the ESHRE guideline have recommended that you should give 3 to 6 cycles of GnRH agonist depot before transferring the embryo in case of endometriosis. Now, other ways of endometrial preparation, I'm not going into details. This is natural cycle where you are not giving any hormone, but you need extensive monitoring. Again, you can improve it by using HCG, where you can make it certain that ovulation is happening. Again, monitoring is required. Or you can stimulate the ovary by various means, clomiphene, letrozole, or FSH. Again, you need monitoring. And problem with this type of protocol is that there is no flexibility. Programming is not possible. Sometimes you may have to plan transfer on the holidays or on Sunday. So you cannot do the programming, which can be done when you are using estradiol, that is HRT cycle. Now, which endometrial preparation is the best? There is nothing called best. All are similar. So the evidence for the best quality of FET is still poor. But HRT is particularly helpful if you are planning programming, that is, if you want to avoid the transfer on holidays or Sunday, if there is premature ovarian follicle where you cannot expect any ovarian follicular activity, so natural cycle is not possible, or where there is anovulation like PCOS, or when there is thin endometrium in fresh cycle. Now, sometimes it can happen even despite using high dose of estradiol, the endometrium remains thin. What you will do? You have to find out the cause and treat it. The cause may be hydrosalpinx, endometritis, endometriosis, and intrauterine adhesion. You can increase the dose of estradiol, or sometimes change in the preparation protocol can help. But how thin is the thin endometrium? You know that ectopic pregnancy happens inside the tube. So what's the thickness of the fallopian tube? It's very thin. So even sometimes pregnancy can happen in very thin endometrium. And this is the editorial published in Human Reproduction the last year. They found that in thin endometrium, that is endometrium as low as 5 millimeter, reasonably number of pregnancies can happen. But it's the recommendation by Canadian Fertility and Andrology Society, that is, if in fresh cycle the endometrial thickness is less than 8, or if in frozen cycle the thickness is less than 7, you should counsel the woman that chance of pregnancy is low. Now, adjuvants, almost all the pharma companies are coming day by day with new molecules like sildenafil, particularly aspirin, L-arginine, vitamin A, blah blah blah, what not, GCSF, platelet plasma, etc. But frankly speaking, all are empirical. Nothing is based by very good quality of evidence. So the guidelines does not recommend use of any adjuvant because their quality of evidence is very poor. In fact, this article is now in press. This will be published in the Fertility Sterility next issue. It has been found that although you are using add-on therapies, it has nothing to do with success rate. It will rather increase the emotional and financial burden and increase the chance of false expectation from the patients. Now, in donor cycle, although you can synchronize the donor and the recipient, but if you want to reduce your headache and want to make your life simple, it's better to freeze the embryo and transfer the embryo in the donor in next cycle. So it appears that FET frozen transfer is good. So is it the time to abandon fresh transfer? Definitely no, because there is no adequate evidence that frozen transfer improves the pregnancy rate. On the other hand, it will increase the cost, treatment time, and patient dissatisfaction, because sometimes patient may be coming from distant places or abroad and they want fresh transfer in the same cycle. Ironically, as I discussed, in fresh transfer, there is increased chance of low birth weight baby and IUGR. And in some studies, it has been found that FET may increase the risk of macrosomia. And we still know whether the vitrification has any long-term effects on long-term development of the baby. Now, whether estrogen has any role in luteal phase support in fresh transfer. Why luteal phase support is required? It is established that in fresh cycle, there will be supraphysiological level of estrogen and progesterone. This will cause feedback inhibition on LH. As a result, the LH will be low and LH will not be sufficient to support the corpus luteum to secrete estrogen and progesterone. So it has been established without any doubt that progesterone supplementation is essential in fresh cycle to improve the pregnancy rate. But what's about estrogen? Some studies found that yes, estrogen, high dose of estrogen along with progesterone is better than progesterone alone to improve the pregnancy rate as luteal phase support in fresh cycle. But the Cochrane review did not find it. They found that there is no difference between estrogen and progesterone versus progesterone only. Having said that, some authors claim that in agonist cycle, because in agonist cycle there is increased chance of pituitary downregulation, so adding estrogen may help. And again, some group of authors found that estrogen supplementation in luteal phase in fresh cycle should be based on estradiol level, serum estradiol level on the day of HCG injection. So it's still controversial whether estrogen should be given as luteal phase support in fresh cycle, but it should not be routine and it should be selective. But there is definite role of estradiol as luteal phase support in fresh cycle when you are advising GnRH agonist trigger. But most of us are doing frozen transfer because GnRH agonist trigger is associated with luteal phase defect. And of course, in case of thin endometrium, but thin endometrium, adding estrogen to improve the endometrial thickness is not recommended. The recommended treatment is freeze all the embryo and then try estrogen replacement and transfer. Now, apart from endometrial stimulation, endometrial preparation, estradiol have role in poor responder. Now, what is poor responder? As you know, there is Rotterdam criteria to define the poor responder. There is another criteria called Bologna criteria recommended by X-ray to define the poor responder, that is advanced maternal age, or there is any risk factor for PUR like radiotherapy, chemotherapy. The lady underwent previous IVF and retrieved less than 3x, and abnormal ovarian reserve biomarker, that is low AMH or low AFC. If 2 out of 3 are present, then you can stamp her as poor responder. What are the ways? Donor is the easy way out. But before advising a donor cycle in a lady, please try to put yourself in their shoes. Everybody wants to become the biological parent. So, in a lady before 40 years, we should try all the options. That is, we should explore all the possible avenues before advising the donors. Having said that, we have to balance between the emotional aspect and the financial aspect, because sometimes the women want to opt for donor because of financial aspects. But if she can afford, we should try different options. One of the options is luteal FSH suppression. Why? In poor responders, sometimes you find that when you are doing scan on day 3 or 4, you find that one follicle size is 10, 12, 14 millimeter. Why? Because there is premature rise of FSH. And this FSH rise starts in the luteal phase, that is late luteal phase. So if you start estrogen pretreatment, it will suppress the FSH. There will be synchronous growth, that is more number of follicles will be in the same size. So there is increased chance that you will get more number of oocytes, more number of good embryos. So you will actually increase the chance of pregnancy. How it is done? You start estradiol at the dose of 4 mg per day from day 20 to 21 of the previous cycle. Continue till day 2 of the next cycle and start simulation with typical antagonist protocol from day 3. And the studies have supported that yes, estradiol pretreatment will improve the chance of oocyte retrieval. Not only this, it has been translated into improved pregnancy and live birth rate. The same principle can be used in cycle scheduling or cycle controlling. That is, when you are doing a batch IVF, you cannot have facility to do IVF regularly. You can have better result if you do estradiol pretreatment. So in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, estradiol valerate is in micronized form is very close to physiological estradiol. It is orally administered, well tolerated, having few side effects. They are very much useful in endometrial preparation in frozen embryo transfer. However, the role in fresh embryo transfer, if any, is questionable. It can be used for cycle regulation in poor responder before starting stimulation. But whether it is effective in thin endometrium in clomiphene letrozole cycle to improve the pregnancy rate, we need further studies. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.